All right, let's see. All right. Hey, so I already have one like, and somebody is over here. Who is over here? I'll find out in a moment, I suppose.
Wait, can you spectate?
Wait, and here I am. I'm live. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. So what do we have here? We have Robert Harrison was here. Sneezer was here. Is that it? I think. Okay, but who is here now is the question. Two people here. Hello, two people. Hi there, and hello. Another Monday, another Q&A, another live stream from Jerusalem. I have a cup of tea. It's yesterday's tea bag. I don't remember which one it was. Which one was it? Is it chamomile? And I don't know. But okay, I'm going to read a few comments and, well, from the last few days or week, I don't know. I was out sick last week, as I said in the short that I published today in preparation for this. And had a few days where I was not feeling that great, but I am back. Okay. So let's see. Sneezer said 3 hours. Oh my, you'll need to yell. I'm only just going to bed. Well, okay, if he's going to bed. I wrote a 50-chapter book over the last 3 days, said Sneezer. Well, 50 chapters, each chapter is a lot of pages. Each chapter could be a few paragraphs. What do you mean? A 50-chapter book? How many pages? How many words? What was it about? I hope that you'll be able to... Hey, Yes is here. Hello, Yes. I hope you'll be able, Sneezer, to clarify. And that's just the introduction, said Robert Harrison. Shalom Jen, he says, I'm still in Ezekiel. Came up on a chapter where there was another vision of a great eagle. Seems interesting. The word eagle, it throws me to one of Rabbi Nachman's tales, one of his Sipurei Masiot. Hope you're feeling better. Yes, I am. Much, much better. Had a bit of a stomach bug last week. Not pleasant, not the entire week, but just the whole week was not that pleasant. And now I'm feeling, with great thanks to God, I'm feeling much, much better. And it's a new moon. A new moon, the moon of Kislev, the 3rd month. Robert Harrison said, I just heard a song by Tom Petty, just released, called You're Keeping Me Alive. It's good. Hey man, Tom Petty is still releasing music from beyond the grave? Is he a gangster rapper or what? And today, in 1979, I think it was, Pink Floyd apparently released The Wall today. One of definitely not the top Pink Floyd album for me. I'm more of a fan of their earlier work, but definitely the 70s albums were off the hook. Each and every one of them so unique, so awesome. You short, said JoJo Recipes. I'm short? Well, I'm 1.70 meters, which is average for Israel. You shit, yes I do, almost every single day. And if I don't shit, then I die. So I say thank goodness for shit. Also, last week the shits were not as orderly and not with the proper consistency like the emoji that you put on there, hence why I wasn't broadcasting. But nevertheless, even if the shit wasn't precisely the way I wanted it to be, it was still the body expelling the negativity. And so I was thankful and grateful for that as well. And if you are calling me a shit, well, I must agree with you completely. Definitely I am. Definitely I am. And I'm curious, Jojo, are you Jojo Mojo from the Powerpuff Girls? Are you Jojo from, Gene Made a Machine and Jojo Made It Go? Are you Jojo... What other Jojos? Jojo DiMaggio? People, help me out. What other Jojos? Bro, Jojo said. Bring us that Hebrew lore, O great Nazarite. Well, I am not great. And hopefully, if the opportunity presents itself, I would love to. Jojo Bizarre Adventure. I don't know Jojo Bizarre Adventure, yes? Do tell. What is Jojo Bizarre Adventure? All right, let's read a couple of... Oh, hang on. I'm sorry, I missed something here. Add this to the live streams. Yes, good. Let's read a few comments. So first of all, just from today and the short, I am Mork said, nice shades, bro. And I said, yes, thank you, nanu. It's a very classic anime, he says, yes. Well, I don't know it. I do not know it. Jerry Sufi Music, he said, What are your thoughts on connecting with the divine in the here and now? And so I told him the classic, right? I don't know the divine. All I know is how the divine reveals himself to me. To connect to the divine, I told him, means to connect with who I am as a human being made in the image of God. In other words, I said, in order to connect here and now to the ever-flowing revelation of God, it would be best to make a serious attempt to embody the divine attributes that we, human beings, right, are meant to mirror. In other words, to connect to myself and who I really am is to connect to the divine. And I say it can be done through nature, through music, through prayer, through dialogue, through Torah and commandments, through being a good person. This is how we connect to the divine, in my opinion. And this was 3 hours ago, and he hasn't responded yet, but I'm awaiting a response. BMXers said, you honestly hug trees, referring to a different live stream. So yes, I do hug trees sometimes, not on a regular basis. And he said, why? Because it's a living organism? I said, it helps to ground me. And he asked, what's grounding? Now, different people have different interpretation of what it means to ground oneself. But I told him, for me, it very plainly and simply means be here now. And it does help me do that.
It only has 2 shots.
It does help me do that. Okay. Pixie Face says, have you retired or just tired? So yes, I was indeed very tired. Indeed. Okay. Frank Waits and I were had a back and forth this afternoon, and he said, I will read his comment. He said this. He said about the Nazarite, Rabbi David Cohen, the Nazarite, the Nazarite of Jerusalem, the rabbi who died in the late 70s. And he said, a respected Nazarite, he said, followed a doctrine that believes that Lucifer helped mankind by tempting Eve with the fruit and gave us enlightenment. That means Satanism, he says. Now, he equates Satanism with Kabbalah. And I asked him which precisely, right, which exact strain or school or which Kabbalah do you mean? Because there are more ancient ones and more modern ones. There's before the Ari, there's after the Ari. And these are vast differences. And I told him that there are different schools and ideas within Satanism and within Kabbalah. And he mentioned Yeshua, and I said, I'm not a follower of Yeshua, so that really doesn't apply to me. And he said, I say it's Satanism because it is mysticism and a rewriting of the Torah. He says it is more closely associated with Gnosticism or agnosticism. He said it is sorcery in a sense because it aims to achieve enlightenment through secret techniques of numbers and geometry and disregards the simple nature of God's grace. And I answered him saying, this is precisely why I said it depends on the Kabbalistic school or thought or strain that you are affiliated with or that you've studied. Because I told him that I disagree completely with the fact that, with his contention, that Kabbalah aims to achieve enlightenment through secret techniques, numbers, and geometry. And I told him, I see your point. Maybe some Kabbalists or some Kabbalistic teachings or some Kabbalistic schools do teach this. But the Kabbalah, which I've been immersed in for some years now, I told him it aims to help one achieve enlightenment through Torah and commandments. It advocates the study of the paths through which divine revelation is made manifest in the world, because these paths are mirrored in us human beings, being the image of God. And to know those paths of divine attributes, to know the Sfirot, the tree of life, and the relationships between the Sfirot, it is also to study how to best embody these divine attributes that we mirror. Meaning, when we learn about the different relationships between the Sfirot, when we learn about the relationships between the different divine attributes and emanations as they appear here in the world, it means that we are also informing our own thoughts and our deeds and how we comport ourselves, right? How we conduct ourselves in the world. I also told him that the simple nature of God's grace is never forgotten in my estimation, because we never speak of God as such. It's always revelations, emanations, attributes. It's never God. And so when he speaks of the simple nature of God's grace, that's what I would think would be, right, that which is unfathomable and unknowable. So Kabbalah does not negate the simple nature of God and of God's grace. It insists on the simple nature that God is not 10 sfirot. Those are revelations. God is not masculine, feminine, higher or lower. These are revelations. There is no top, down, and so on, right? Left, right, strange, charmed, in the divine. In the divine, these are all ways in which we, right, ways of which we speak in order to make a connection. He continued, or should I go to the chat? No, let's just continue with Frank Waits here. He said, I was a Buddhist for a long time. Spent years practicing meditation techniques of Vipassana and Samatha. And in the temple, many Zen practitioners became Pure Land Buddhists, relying on the power of the occult. Relying on the power of others. What I've come to realize in all religions, practices, from Buddhism to the occult, from Hinduism to paganism and everything in between, he says, is that man cannot achieve perfection or work his way into heaven. We live in a fallen world and can never be pure enough to enter paradise or a place without sin, because sin is in us. So this is where he obviously goes in a very Christian route. He says Yeshua is our salvation. It's not what we can do for him, but what he did for us. He paid the final guilt offering, the unblemished lamb, given authority over all creation. And he said, read Isaiah 53. So the whole idea of Isaiah 53 being talking of the Messiah as Jesus has already been debunked, if that is even something that can be said about. It's an opinion. I guess it's not fact, or it's not presented as fact, so it's not debunked. But it's been contested heavily, and it's been refuted by, so many times, so many people. Obviously, people see what they want to see. If you read Isaiah 53 and you want to see Yeshua, you'll see him there. If you want to read the entire 5 books of Moses and all of the Bible, right, from Genesis until Chronicles, and you want to see Yeshua in every single step, you will. So what I say about it has no meaning or any kind of influence, just that to me, Yeshua makes no appearance. It doesn't factor into the process here. And I told him something I've said many times. There was a good chance I would have followed Yeshua as well around, if I was around at the time. But he died. He's dead. That's it. That's where it ends for me. We do not follow dead kings, but we can follow in their teachings, right? And in their footsteps, their proverbial footsteps. So I disagree also with him on the satanic thing. Because, again, are you talking about medieval Satanism? Are you talking about the LaVeyan Satanism? And which Kabbalah are you talking about? But I really, really think that people who think that Kabbalah is Satanism, I don't know. I'm not going to say they're wrong, because what do I know? But I would say that certain Kabbalistic approaches and teachings definitely don't line up with any kind of Satanism. So, and then he said, do you believe Sophia is a female emanation of God? And I told him, I believe God is not masculine or feminine, but is revealed in the masculine and the feminine. And isn't Sophia Greek? I'm pretty sure that's a Greek goddess. And that there's a higher female emanation we call mother, and there's a lower female emanation we call daughter or bride. But neither one of these, not the daughter or the bride or the mother-in-law, or whatever it is, all the names that we give, all the attributes, all the different measures and metrics, they're not God. They're simply how God is revealed to us here in the world. And once again, we speak of these physical things, of the eyes of God and the arms of God and the finger of God, when God possesses none of these things, just in order to make a connection. But one of the things that any Kabbalist or student of the Tree of Life, worth his or her salt, the first thing they'll tell you is that don't ever make the mistake of thinking that what we're talking about here has anything to do with the spiritual worlds and the physical. It means that there is no eyes and ears of God, but these are words that we use in order to, right, to have we use physical terms to make a metaphysical spiritual connection, because we are living, breathing, walking, talking physical beings. The existence of a soul or lack thereof, right, can be debated and whatnot. The metaphysical nature of humanity, the image of God of humanity, that can all be debated. But why Kabbalists use these terms, why the 10 Sfirot make an appearance, why we are called, right, the 10 Sfirot, right? Why are we called the image of God as people in a body? Because we are physical beings living a physical life, making a metaphysical connection. Now, we are first and foremost spiritual beings going through a biological experience, as it were. But so God is none of these things, and he is revealed in all of these things, right? He is not the world, but is revealed in the world. This idea of God in the flesh is something that is very not Mosaic, as it were, right? The Torah does not agree with this, which means that all of the followers of Jesus and others who say that, no, it's actually the Word become flesh, God was the Word became flesh, whatever it is, that's where I draw the line. It's like, yes, there could have been the dude, yes, he could have had disciples, he could have been a great rabbi, a sage, a prophet, a king, all of that ended when he died, that's it, and he was never God incarnate. Now, other people who don't follow the Torah, obviously they can believe whatever they want to believe. A Hebrew man or woman who seek to follow Torah, this is a very fundamental thing where God has no physical, right? He's not a corporeal being. He's not a being at all. Being is a made-up word, right? It's a word. It's a word that I describe to, and I assigned it to a thought. So when I say being, I understand something about what that means. That in itself does not mean God. All right. Faith Robin asked, after all this time, do you ever get new dreads pop up? Yes, indeed. New hairs come in and dread up, though it's getting a bit thinner over here, on the right over here in the front. I'm still getting new hair. I'm still getting new dreads. Things are still locking up, and yeah. All right, let's go to the chat, to the live chat. The live chat. Okay, here we are. So, bro, said Jojo. Do you believe, asks Robert, that God can be knowable? I do. So no, I don't believe God as we, right? The word God, again, I don't know what God is. All I know is how God reveals himself to me. The revelations can be known, but not the Creator itself. Yes, says, I think submerging in water also helps concerning discharging. Immersing in water or submerging in water will help discharging? You mean anal discharge? Do you know Abraxas? Abraxas, that sounds so familiar. Oh my God, he's a cat. Isn't he a cat? Who is he? Mr. Rabbit says hi. Hello, Mr. Rabbit. Bro, I smell your shit. It's odd.
Kick your ass.
That's really, really odd. How can you be smelling it from way over here to way over there? See, you must have some real good powers there, Mr. Jojo. Wait, now it's Jojo recipes. So could you give us a recipe for a Jojo? Or a recipe by a Jojo? Or any kind of recipe, really. People, give me a good cookie recipe. I probably wouldn't be able to. Thank you. Yes, what is the recipe of shit?
No.
So it's a good thing you're there.
No.
Mr. Big, hey Mr. Big, nice to see you again. Shalom, he says. Is he behind on the comments? Yes, I am. You will catch up eventually. This was uttered at 9:12 and it's now 9:21. Oh man, Mr. Big, once again, he says, can you read Yevimot, or Yevamot, 47b? It's like, yes, I could, but you gotta zero in on a specific sugya, on a specific utterance, because it takes time to read a page of Talmud. Certainly Babylonian Talmud, and certainly me, who is not versed enough in Babylonian Talmud, and I haven't opened a Gemara in a long time. So could I do it? Yes, poorly, I might add. But I could do it. But again, you need to zero in. Well, for all I know, you zeroed in later on in the chat. But when you say read this, it's like, yes, I can read it, but I'm not going to waste everybody's time here struggling through a page of Talmud. But if you zero in on something or provide a quote or context, give me something to work with and we'll be able to have the discussion gladly. Ariel says, hi Ariel, good to see you, man. Ariel says, Judaism is tied to studying God. The letters and numbers come from God. So I do not see why studying them should be an issue for anyone. Hi, by the way. Ariel says, anyone else suffering due to the Black Friday sales? Well, I'm a copywriter, right? I'm a marketing writer, so this is the time of year that I can kind of, come up with new ways to sell stuff. Now let's get back into this. Ariel said Judaism is tied to studying God, and letters and numbers come from God. So I do not see why studying them should be an issue for anyone. Well reasoned, I must say. We're not saying, right? It's not sorcery. Once again, there are some Kabbalists out there who deal with what's called Kabbalah Ma'asit, practical Kabbalah of Olam HaMa'aseh, Olam HaAsiyah, this world, the world of practice, the world of physical being. But most, well, I don't know most, many Kabbalistic teachings and Kabbalists say no. Stay away from practical Kabbalah. Practical in the sense of don't try to control the angels, don't try to control the elements, don't try to control the physical world. Just do your thing plainly, blamelessly as much as you can, wholeheartedly, go all in. Know thyself, and you will know the divine connections. Know the 10 Sfirot, study the tree of life, keep Torah and commandments. It all goes hand in hand. And if you do study the numbers, and if you do study the letters, give them their proper context. I've said this before. The Ramak says, and many others did before him, in Pardes Rimonim, he says, don't make the mistake of thinking that any gematria fart that you let out, I'm paraphrasing, not any fart is a great teaching. It means that yes, some gematriot, some numerical value of letters, turn this way and that way, and you take away this letter and you add this amount, and you could get to anything. Like I said before with people seeing Jesus in the Bible, it's like, yes, if you want to see him there, you'll see him there. If you want to see a blue unicorn there, that's what you'll see. It's the same deal. And so if you're looking to say that Kabbalah is sorcery and black magic, and look at all these, names and these numbers and these letters and sacred geometry, and it's all heresy, and yeah, you'll probably find that too. But for instance, somebody like the Ramak, somebody like Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, right, who in his 20s, after studying for many years, writes Pardes Rimonim, and one of the first things he says is like, no, there's nothing physical about the divine, and everything in the spiritual world is not physical. We simply use these terms in order to make a connection. And these gematriot, the geometry, the letters, the numbers, and everything in between, it should not, let's say, take the place of the Torah, as it were. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like you could come up with numbers and letters to make any point, or to come at some. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that is divinely inspired. So you need to know the difference. You need to be able to discern. And some of the things that Torah and commandments and walking that way teaches you is to discern. To each his own, right? We each have a different temperament, and we each come from a different tribe, so to speak. So, now why are you suffering due to the Black Friday sales? Mr. Big says, no, Yehoshua isn't in the Torah or Tanakh. Well, Yehoshua, son of Nun, is, but Yeshua, son of Joseph, is not. Yes, says, some Hebrew people, spiritual descendants of Casites, considered Jess as Messiah. I'm not sure who the Casites or Caiasites were. Now, again, it could very well be that I would consider him an anointed one as well. If he was anointed, and I think in the New Testament somebody anoints his feet, maybe also his head. The point is, he was never formally, properly, officially coronated, crowned, and anointed by the people. He was never embraced by all the people as the king of the Jews at the time. So that's that. Second of all, yes, he could have definitely been a potential Messiah until he died. That's it. We do not follow dead kings. Meaning that when he died, some other bloke became potential Messiah. A few, not just one. It all depends on, do we merit it, and does the potential Messiah merit it? It comes down to merit. You need to earn it. And if you don't earn it and you fall so much that there's no returning, eventually it's said that God will redeem us one way or the next, one way or the other, right? In this way or the next. Redemption is coming, and that right soon. And the only question is, do we do it? Do we accept it? Do we embrace it? Do we find Messiah? Does he find us? Do we crown him by the river? Or do we wait until things have gotten so bad that God is like left choiceless? His hands are bound by our malevolence, and he must redeem us. And some people in the 16th century sought to do exactly that. The more famous one is Yaakov Frank, right? The Frankists, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 16th century. They decided that they are going to transgress so much, to such a horrible degree, and do things that are so awful that they will sort of force God's hand and cause the divine revelation to usher in the redemption and the times of Messiah, not because we were doing so well, but because we were doing so poorly. That did not end well at all, I think. Mr. Big, he's in there a lot, says Robert. Yes, says, but why did Lord at some point spoke almost directly with his people and not anymore? Well, much like the revelation at Sinai, it was a once in creation sort of thing. Just like Moses, right? A once in creation sort of individual. There's what's known as the descending of the generations. And you're asking why? I think that we have come to the point. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. And I say that only because I believe that the spirit of prophecy is alive and kicking in the people of Israel and in this nation. For a long time it was absent, and now it's making a comeback. So why did the Lord at some point speak almost directly with his people, but not anymore? Far be it from me to say. I could, I suppose, give you a couple of opinions and different commentators. It's simply, people say that it's simply because those people back in the days of yore were more spiritual in nature. Even let's say the people of Sodom, right, of Sodom. It says, "V'anshei Sodom ra'im v'chataim la'Adonai me'od." In Genesis, it says that the people of Sodom were wicked and transgressing to God greatly. And to God means that they knew the Most High God, and they decided to anger the divine revelation and do things on purpose in order to rebel. And even they, right, they had a knowledge of God. Throughout the generations, again, I won't go into why. Let's just say it's the descending of the generations. On the one hand, we have a lot more potential for connection now. And on the other hand, it's precisely now, so to speak, where connection seems to be so sorely lacking. It's like we have all the knowledge at our fingertips, but a lot of people are saying that people nowadays are a lot more dumb than we used to be as a people. Now, I don't know if that's completely true. Who knows? But that sort of line of thinking where, as it says in Daniel, right? There will be knowledge everywhere, and yet people will not be able to, right? They'll be wandering. Ariel says, oh, he's in there a lot talking about Jesus, and no, he's not, Robert, Mr. Big says. Ariel says, is it true that Satan shares the same numerical value with the Hebrew word for mother-in-law? Ha! Well, I don't think so. First of all, because it's a final nun. Satan is a final nun. And then you need to say, okay, is the final nun going to be counted like a regular nun? Or will it be counted as 700, which I think, yes, it's 700 in the larger. Anyway, it depends on the gematria that you use. But you could check that out. I'm not sure, right? Because there are about 10 or 11 different gematrias and ways to switch letters, right? And different things to do with the letters. Yes, says, Kabbalists tend to equate usefulness of left path with the other one, since overuse of either is filled by other. I'm sorry, what? Hang on. Kabbalists tend to equate usefulness of left path with the other one. Right, the Sitra Achra, the other side, the dark side, the evil side, yes. Overuse of either is filled by other. Right, so first of all, there's going too much to the right and going too much to the left. The idea of Yaakov, of Israel, of Jacob being the center, right? We have Abraham on the right, we have Yitzchak on the left, and Yaakov being the middle pillar, the one who brings balance. He is the one, right? We are called the children of Israel. He is the one, even though three of them are patriarchs and our fathers, it is the children of Israel. Because Israel, right, and he had his name changed, not just a letter, but the whole name, because there's a balance there that Yaakov brings into the picture. And that's why we are the 12 tribes of Jacob, right? The 12 tribes of Israel. James Bong is here. Shalom, shalom. Love hearing your insight, HN. Well, as you know, mainly I'm regurgitating other people's insights, and occasionally I have my own little twist on things. Where is he reading? He's way behind. Yes, I am way behind. This was uttered, or not uttered, but written at 9:19, and it's now 9:33. Yes, says, according to Christians, there's only one path. Other is just severe absence of the Lord's presence. Well, that's a very sort of Hasidic, let's say, Lurianic way of looking at things. But even then, it's only used as a metaphor, right? The Chalal Panui, the vacant void, as it's known, where God, in the beginning of creation, sort of extricated himself from somewhere in order to bring creation into being. That's also a metaphor and analogy, let's say. It's not actually something that happened. It's a way of thinking about it. The first Tzimtzum, the second Tzimtzum, this all has to do with the way we, as the image of God, mirror all of these processes. That how we, as the image of God, mirror the divine attributes, embody the divine attributes. And so some people say that Christianity is too much right and Islam is too much to the left, and the Hebrew faith, right, being the middle pillar, is the coming together of both. And the middle pillar is before and after, right? The middle pillar is there before it splits into left and right, and after it comes together from left and right. And throughout the 10 Sfirot, we see how the middle pillar, time and again, is able to merge different attributes. It has to do with relationships. It has to do with giving things their proper time and place, be they left-hand oriented or right-hand oriented. And once again, this all has to do, and it always goes back to us as individuals. And for the Hebrew folk, how do we keep the Torah and the commandments? How is it that we go about living our lives here in the world? That's knowing yourself, and that's knowing the divine. Okay. Mr. Biggs says, Chamata, אתה יכול ללכת לוויות 47b if זה אומר לנו להמיר גויים. Okay, so talking about conversion, I'm not sure what Yevimot 47b says about conversion. זה אני יעקב. I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry, Mr. Big, I'm not sure what you mean. I can't be of assistance to you. The transliteration leaves a lot to be desired, unfortunately. I'm sure you're doing your best, and I commend you for taking the time, but I still don't quite get what it is that you are getting at in the Babylonian Talmud Yevimot 47b. Sorry. Recipe says yes, such recipe as such leads to expensive coffee. Robert Harrison says, Mr. Big, I would direct you to Daniel 7, verses 13, 14. He's right there, and many more. Proverbs 34 as well. Well, all right, Mr. Big and Robert Harrison, I'm sure we'll have the back and forth. Let's continue. Yes says. Oh, James Bong says, when will Mashiach be here? Hayom im bekolot ishmau. Today, if to his voice you hearken. Just like Eliyahu, just like Elijah the prophet told the sage in the market. Yes says, have you heard of dangers to sin, which only appear when being in a pair with another similarly falsely minded, with another similarly falsely minded? Well, the dangers to sin, it's embodied in the phrase oy la'rasha ve'oy lishcheno, which means woe to the wicked man and woe to his neighbor. It's there's some sort of school of thought that says that you are the sum of the 5 people whom you are around the most. And so if you are around wicked folk, neighbor to them, if you will, certain things might rub off on you. On the other hand, there's a story about a Buddhist, I think it was a Buddhist monk, and the Buddha told him to go live with a prostitute or something like that. And everyone was like, what? The monk going to live with a prostitute? And a year or two later, when the monk returned to the Buddha, he returned with a fellow female nun, right? A Buddhist nun. In other words, yeah, if you live next to the wicked man, maybe some of him will rub off on you, as it were. Or you could also rub off on him. But I think what you said, right, the dangers to sin when you're in a pair, that's embodied by the phrase oy la'rasha ve'oy lishcheno, woe to the wicked and woe to their neighbor. He continues, אני ואתה יכולים פשוט לדבר אמת בין יהודי, עברי, ישראלי, אחד, למשנהו. Sorry, man. I got the beginning. I don't quite understand what you're getting at, though. Star Wars also stole it, says yes, since 2 minds think more than one. What do you mean 2? Are you talking about the rule of 2? Always 2 there are, a master and an apprentice? Or are you thinking of force connecting in Star Wars? What are you going there? The Talmud was written in Aramaic, not Hebrew. Yes, that is correct. It was written in Aramaic. The Jerusalem Talmud, I think, has a bit more Hebrew, but there's not much of the Jerusalem Talmud left. Jewish, Babylonian, Aramaic, says Bong. As I've said, my favorite Aramaic is the Syrian Eretz Yisrael Aramaic, just because it's closer to Hebrew, so I can understand it better. Yes says, they were medieval Egyptian, mainly descendants of Sadducees, also critical to Talmud, erased by Maimonides. Wait, what do you mean erased by Maimonides? I mean, Maimonides lived, 1100 years ago or so? Or am I mistaken? Was it 1300 years? Anyway, I don't remember precisely when Maimonides lived, but Rambam erased. What do you mean by erased? You mean neglected and left out of his writings? What do you mean? Yes, there were many different sects and individuals who were critical of the Talmud. Now, when you have your temple destroyed and your religion becomes a very organized religion, and when you lose that place of central worship and you have to make do with other things, and it was such a shift, such a transformation. Judaism, the Hebrew faith, at least in some ways, went into survival mode, in exile. I mean, so much that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, the sage, when he was asked by the Roman in charge, tell me what you want and I will grant it. And he said, give me Yavne and its sages. He didn't say, give me Jerusalem. He said, give me Yavne. He knew, right? He had the foresight to not ask for the for Jerusalem and a place of the fallen temple, but to ask for Yavne where there was Torah and oral Torah and the sages of Yavne. There are still many other people who say that rabbinic Orthodox Judaism is the worst thing to ever happen to the Hebrew faith ever. Any denomination or sect or group, whatever. The worst things to ever happen to the 12 tribes of Israel is the emerging as a victor, right, from the time, the emergence of a Orthodox, rabbinic-based faith and halacha, right? Organized religion, heavily organized. And again, I'm not a scholar, I'm not an academic, I'm not a learned man, I'm not an educated man. I know that there is a lot of merit to what Orthodox, right, rabbinic Judaism did at the time. There is also merit to the Essenes, and there's merit to the Sadducees, and there's merit to all of the other sects, right? And the Samaritans, right? And the Karaites. They each have their own place within the Hebrew faith. Yes. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. That would be foolish, to say the least. I will say that over the course of many years, the only one that has significantly flourished is the rabbinic, Orthodox, organized religion, Judaism, as we know it now. Now, even the Judaism that we know now has been heavily influenced by Hasidism from the last few hundred years. And so many things over the years were tacked on, and people in exile for almost 2 millennia carrying out on their own traditions, even if they were outside of their place of exile, coming back to the place of the birth of this, to here in Israel, and they're keeping to their ways of exile and the traditions of their fathers and their fathers before them, but in the foreign land, not the traditions of Judah and of Judea. So much time has passed, so many transformations, so much persecution, so much death and destruction and exile and tragedy. And so I'm going to criticize that here and now. I can criticize it in the sense of I was born and raised modern Orthodox in Jerusalem, right? So I can criticize it like that, to that degree. But I also completely understand the people who say, hell no, Orthodox Rabbinic Judaism is the worst thing to ever happen to Judaism. I can see why they would say that. I really can. I don't necessarily agree, but I try to take things also in context. I think there's a very good chance that if the oral Torah wasn't written down, if the Mishnah, the Talmud, right, the Geonim, Rishonim, Achronim, Halacha as we know it nowadays, and even, yes, the influence of Hasidism from the last few hundred years, if this would not have all come into being, I don't know where we would be now. Could be we would be in a much better place, physically, spiritually. I have no idea. All I know is the here and now. And in the here and now, despite all of its faults, and there are many, I still see a lot of promise and great merit to Orthodox Judaism. A lot of things are screwed up about it, yes. That's why I pick and choose. I'm a cherry picker. I take what I like from whatever I want, and I make no apologies. That's why, because I couldn't take it on whole hog. I did for a long time. I kept strict halacha for years. So in that sense, I've been there. I know it. Which is why when I left strict halacha, when I took a step back from Orthodox Judaism, I did it knowingly, full well, right, aware of my actions. And people told me, "Oh, what about your kids? Later on, and they and 2 or 3 generations later, they won't even know they're Jewish." And I said, "Yeah, that could very well be. But all I have is the here and now. Am I supposed to sacrifice my own physical and spiritual life? Living the way I want, pursuing what I want, because in a few generations that might come to pass?" Also, I told them I'm not abandoning it completely. Orthodox Judaism has a place in my heart. The Torah has an ongoing place in our home forever. So while my kids, right, may not have the traditional Orthodox halachic upbringing, they do have a Mosaic and biblical, let's say, upbringing. And I'm content with that. I'm content with that, right? As I've said before many times. Be calm and drink coffee. Shalom, Yon. Hi there. Hello. Good to see you. Yes says, if you watch history, Islam with absolutely mainstream esoteric Judaism walked hand in hand. Oh, if you watch history, he says, Islam and esoteric Judaism walked hand in hand, one helping another. It could very well be that that was the case. There are some things where esoteric Judaism and Islam align, I'm sure. Obviously, yes, that could be the case. I mean, and there were sages who wrote in Arabic because they lived in Arabic-speaking countries. Natalie, hello Natalie, says, if we were to force his hand because we are so bad, then when will he step in? I mean, since the beginning, humans have been pretty bad, just saying. Yes, it's true, Natalie, humans have been pretty bad, and we have the propensity, is that it? The potential for good and bad. The best of and the worst of, that's what we are. When will he step in? I have no idea. I know that, I mean, Frank at the time and his disciples did a lot of things in order to write many transgressions, thinking that they were doing the will of the Most High God in doing so. Because they said, we want to usher in the redemption. He will have to step in eventually. It didn't happen. James Bong says, ooh, it's starting to snow here in my subtropical West Kentucky. Hey, enjoy the snow. Makes me want hot cocoa. Good for you. Go for it. Make some. Yes says, if these people were progressively godlier than us, how can we interpret world in a non-same way and correct them? I'm not sure what you mean. How can we interpret world in a non-same way and correct them? Yes, could you clarify that? I'm not sure what you meant to say. Robert says, what in your opinion did it mean when God told Israel in Ezekiel that their father was an Amorite and mother was a Hittite? He said that a few times. Well, either he means that you have forsaken your covenant and have embraced foreign worship and foreign idols, or he means, remember where you came from. Avraham came from idol worshippers, right? Other people, right? Even in this week's Torah portion, right? We know that Isaac had two sons, right? Jacob and Esau, and it said that, it has been said that Jacob was a man of Torah, and Esau went to foreign worship and foreign idols. So, depending on the context, it could mean know where you came from, and it can also mean see, you have abandoned me. Robert says, Jonathan, what is your relationship like with your mother in LA? I'm not in LA. What do you mean? In LA? I'm not sure what you mean. What is your relationship like with your mother in LA? I'm not sure what you mean by in LA. It's not Los Angeles or Louisiana. But if you're asking about my relationship with my mother, it has always been really, really awesome. Now, through therapy, many years ago, I discovered that I was looking at my childhood and at my parents somewhat with like rose-tinted, rose-colored glasses. And so I decided, I didn't decide, it definitely is something that I don't do anymore. But forever and always, that my relationship with my mother was very close and very awesome and full of good vibes, by and large. Mr. Big, come on, man. I told you, I'm not exactly understanding what you're saying with these transliterations. I'll try again. אחי היהודי, שלח אתה צריך להיות מהיר יותר, וזה אני יעקב דיברנו אני מאנגליה. Okay, you're from England. He says I need to be faster with the chat. I'm assuming that's what he means. Or maybe he means I just need to be faster as such. Yes, says, because that's what Rabbinism after 1200, when trying to appear to Mongols, decided that the newer idea, the better. The newer, the better. Let's put it this way. The newer, the better is true in the sense that there are ancient teachings that we need to hold to, fundamentals, right? And halacha, not the one that was written down, also that one, I guess, but halacha as an idea, the oral Torah, the oral traditions were meant to continuously be updated as the generations went on. And the fact that it had to be written down was not a default by any means. It was born out of tragedy and destruction and exile and the very viable fear and concern that the oral traditions will be completely lost. So they had to make a choice, the lesser of two evils. What do? Do we write down these oral teachings that we were not supposed to write down? Or do we not write them down and risk everything being lost? And so they chose the lesser of two evils and wrote down the Mishnah and wrote down the Talmud later. So, well, that's that. That's what I consider it to be anyway. Robert says Afghanistan and Pakistan has a lot of Israelite tribes in their borders. Yes, I've heard this, and it could very well be. WD. Hey, what's up, my Hebrew? Feeling well? Yes, I am. Thank you, WD. I appreciate that. Yes says, well, a posteriori refusal of ego, not egoism, and Lord as consequence is what I mean by absence, not a chaos one. No, I understood what you meant when you said absence, which enables free will, this supposed chaos. I think I understood what you meant earlier. Oh, wait, the chat just jumped. Where am I? Okay. Robert says, in your opinion, do you think all the hostages will be released? No. Unfortunately not. I have no idea. I'd like them to be released, and I'd like them to live full and safe and healthy lives. Fat chance, right? But I have a feeling, a horrible feeling, that Hamas will end up butchering them all. I just think that, well, I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. Hit the like button, says Robert. Well, you don't have to, but I appreciate it. 9 people watching, 6 likes here. Almost an hour already. And let me take this quick aside to say thank you. Thank you, good people, for your time and your attention and your contributions. And, your views, your likes, your subs, whatever the case may be, it is greatly appreciated. I don't take it for granted that I can just sit here and press go live, and here you are, and we're having a lovely discussion, and you're enlightening me, and it's not something that is simple or that I can look at plainly, let's say, by any means, and I really appreciate it that you're here with me. Okay. Ariel says, which historical/biblical character would you most like to meet if you had a time machine, and why? Well, I think I would like to meet David, the king, King David, even though Moses is traditionally a tribesman and a clansman of mine. I think it's David HaMelech that I would want to meet. Because he embodies, right, that warrior poet. He embodies Malchut, the final, right, the feminine divine attribute. And I think that's why. I think so. I think it would be David, but I have no idea. Also, what would you most like to witness? Well, the revelation at Sinai. Either the revelation at Sinai or the dedication of the first temple by King Solomon. You know what? I think I would want to go to the dedication of the first temple. Because our sages teach us that in spirit, let's say, we were all there at Sinai. And But we were not all there at the dedication of the temple in Jerusalem. I think that's where I would want to be. I would want to go to the dedication of the first temple. What about you, good people? What biblical character or historical or biblical character would you want to meet? Now, if we're talking about a historical character, that's a different story. Biblical is biblical, historical is historical. They can coincide, but not necessarily, right? They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. As for a historical figure, oh wow. I would have to give it more thought, because obviously I've thought of this question before, but nothing comes to mind right now, and I would have to give it more thought. So what about you people? Who would you want to meet, and what would you want to witness? Mr. Big says, one is correct, so one must be better than the other, Achi. You should know there's only one truth. Well, let's put it this way. Even the concept of truth in the 10 Sfirot, emet, truth in Hebrew, emet is the attribute of tiferet. Emet is the whole gamut. Aleph, mem, tav, emet, which is the first letter, the middle letter, and the final letter, aleph through tav. And tiferet, the middle divine attribute, connects the top to the bottom, and it runs all the way, right? Top to bottom, bottom to top, and emet right in the center of it. So there's only one truth? Sure, you could say that, but that truth in and of itself is the it's not an amalgamation. What word am I looking for? Anyway, that truth is the coming together of higher things, right? So I'm not sure what you mean when you say it, but if we're talking about understanding who we are and understanding the divine revelation and making a connection, then I see truth as another divine attribute. And if I see it in context in the 10 Sfirot, it has its place, yes, but it's still a divine attribute, and it's in the center of everything, right? And beginning, middle, and end, emet, aleph, mem, tav, yes, but it's still only one. As for, well, let's leave it at that. Be Calm says, Chabad is the largest Chassid community group. I believe we are. I believe we are. Are we Gear the Stranger? Said Mr. Big. Are we Gear the Stranger? What was that supposed to be? I'm not sure what you mean. Yes, said, you are a good man. Well, I have my moments, if you were talking to me. I'm not always good, but I try to be when I'm not too much of a shit. Yep. Ariel says it is the largest group calling itself Jewish, but other Jews might claim they are not Jews. Some people make this claim that Chabad are, or some Chabad people are idol worshippers. People make all kinds of claims. Yes, indeed. No offense, says Mr. Big, but you are like a hippie spiritualist. You need to come back. Yes, people have flung this at me here and there, and I agree. Yes, I am a hippie spiritualist, but my roots are in Torah and in the practical implementation of Torah in this world, meaning Kashrut, Shabbos, the different festivals. Do I keep them? Yes. Do I go to shul? No. Do you see what I mean? So if you're talking about coming back to strict Orthodox rabbinic halacha, I'm not saying never, ever again. I'm saying not now. I've been there. If I will come back, I will do it willingly, happily, gladly. I will return into the tight embrace of strict halacha. Now I know, even within strict halacha, there's wiggle room and opinions, and I'll find a rabbi who jives with me and who vibes with me. I'll find a community that I can find, my place in. All of that can come to pass. All of that can come to fruition now, and maybe I will be kicking my ass in the future, but definitely right now, and I'm not doing this from a place of ego. I thought about it long and hard. People who follow this channel know, every now and then I'll spout this. Years of reflecting, of asking the difficult questions, of asking, am I simply looking to step out of modern orthodoxy and strict halacha simply to satisfy my own impulsive desires and whims or am I doing it from a place of truth, of honesty and authenticity? And after a lot of soul searching, I decided it is the latter. I will pay a price, and I do pay a price for that decision. But you pay a price anyway, no matter what you do. And I decided it is better to pay a price for something that I went for all in than something where I found different things, sometimes fundamental things, lacking and wanting. Now, am I being willfully blind and ignorant, and am I only doing this in order to shirk responsibility and shed the yoke of Torah? It could very well be that I am just bullshitting myself, because I say I am a sinner, I am a transgressor, I know this. In spite of that, I do believe that there is a pillar, a nugget of truth, honesty, and authenticity in what I'm trying to do here in the world. Definitely in the home that I'm trying to build here, and the relationships I'm trying to form, and right, with myself, with others, with the Most High God. I do appreciate your sentiment, Mr. Big. I don't take offense at all. I understand where you're coming from. People who are Orthodox, rabbinic, who keep strict halacha are telling me that I'm doing it wrong. They're saying, don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out entirely. To which I say, maybe my brain has fallen out entirely. Maybe I am just a hippie spiritualist, as you said. And you call me a hippie spiritualist, maybe in a derogatory sort of way, but I see it in the positive way, because to be hip is to be aware, and to be spiritual, right, is to not necessarily be religious, but to cultivate a connection between yourself and the divine. That's what I want to do. I want to cultivate a connection between myself and the Most High God, and to be here now. So yes, I am a hippie spiritualist. Robert says, most of Tel Aviv has rejected Orthodox. Well, again, the majority of Israeli citizens, Jews, are not religious. Yet, the majority of them are traditionally Orthodox, meaning they don't ever go to shul. But if they ever do, they don't go Reform, they don't go conservative, they don't go Reconstructionist, and they don't go to the humane. They go to an Orthodox shul. You know, Ashkenaz, Sfarad, Yemenite, whatever the case may be, but they go to an Orthodox shul when they do go. See what I'm saying? In everyday life, they don't observe the commandments religiously, but if they are going to observe a commandment, they'll wear a yarmulke. That sort of thing. Mr. Big says, not too Orthodox, but to find the original two-temple Judaism. Second Temple Judaism, I think he means. He follows the Nazarite path, says Robert Harrison to Mr. Big. Yeah, but again, I don't want to make it seem as if I'm hiding behind this title of Nazarite. No, I am a sinning Nazarite. I am a transgressing Nazarite. This is simply how I'm not, I think, I'm not hiding behind this, it's not as if I've purchased myself shoes a few sizes too great. And I also think that I'm not trying to force things. The path of the Nazarite is something that I was called to for a long time, and it happened to coincide with me desiring to leave strict halacha and go, as they say, off the derech, but onto another path, onto another derech that is also Torah, commandments, and commandment-oriented in its nature. That's how I see it anyway. We need to set... Oh, I'm sorry. Be Calm says, we need to set out of ourself from ego before God can enter, step in. Yes, there's a lot to be said for emptying oneself almost entirely of ego. On the other hand, you must have some modicum, right, of ego in order to be assertive when it needs to be, when you need to be, and in order to not let people walk all over you, and to have a backbone, stand up for yourself and the things that you believe in, know when to step in. If you have no faith in yourself, and if you're a doormat or a slave with zero ego, it can also mean that you will lose yourself. Now, to lose yourself temporarily is a great thing. To have ego death, substance brought on by substances is a different issue. I'm talking about, let's say, spiritual ego death through, well, my mind immediately goes to the Holiday of Atonement, Yom Kippur. To experience a kind of religious, spiritual ego death, and not necessarily, maybe also one brought on by substances, but I'm talking of, forget the substances, right? Forget acid and psilocybin and cannabis. Forget all of the plants and mushrooms and synthetic materials. Simply to learn Torah, go in the ways of the commandments, and hold the covenants near and dear to you, and make them manifest in the world, to take the time to converse with the Most High God, and to be silent. These are all things that attribute, right, and they can culminate in ego death, because the Torah and the commandments connect you to something much greater than yourself. And if you do that more and more in time, and you are so oriented, where you orient yourself towards it, you will definitely be able to experience the kind of ego death that you could get from acid, mushrooms, what have you. Only it will be through prayer, meditation, silence, right? It will be in carrying out a commandment that you have taken it upon yourself to do religiously. It's like these things pile on. It's cumulative. Cumulative? No, what's the word I'm thinking of? Cumulative, whatever the word is. As the Zohar says, no goodwill ever goes missing. Things build on each other. Okay, let's see. So yeah, to separate yourself from ego, right? And my mind goes to the Tao Te Ching, right? He says the one who gives away everything is the one who ends up with everything. Yes, said, meant old patriarchs who stood closer to God, the ones after them, etc., till no more anyone could actually hear. No, I understood what you meant, and that's that descending of the generations, right? The coming down of the generations. That's what the sages were talking about. Southern Lebanon is Israel, says Robert Harrison. Well, again, the actual geography and the borders of Israel, biblically speaking, is a disputed thing. It's unknown precisely exactly what it was. And I mentioned this a couple of live streams ago as well. Let's see. James Bong says, I was accepted to make Aliyah. Unfortunately, I can't go now due to my help is much needed with my mentally and physically disabled brother. I wish I can be in Israel, but there will be a time. Hey, God willing, I hope that you're able to make it. As for Maimonides living 1,200, he converted almost all of these people, and his friend Saladin's army did the rest. Right? You mean at wiping them out? Is that what you mean? Okay. I see what you mean. Be Calm says, Yon, you look a lot like someone I knew whose surname is Rosario. His family were from Spain generations ago. I suspect his family were Sephardic Jews. Well, there have been many. There have been many who were Sephardic Jews in the past, and through the generations now they're Christian, they're Muslim, I don't know what, but they have that Sephardic Jewish connection. Sneezer says, wishes to meet David, but not Jesus. Big mistake. Could very well be. I make tons of mistakes every single day. Every day. I'd like to meet Samson, said yes. Maybe why you have not yet. So Sneezer says that maybe because I would rather meet David than Jesus is because I haven't met Jesus. Maybe. I have no idea. Once again, I say I don't follow Jesus, but maybe if I was alive at the time, I would have followed him when he was around. And from more recent, Salem the Dancer. I'm not sure who Salom the dancer is. I'm sorry, man. Emet means full. Emet means full. Truth means pure. Um, no, no. Pure is tahor, and full is maleh. So I don't know what you mean by emet means full, truth means pure. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If there is only one truth, it is that there is only one truth. But there must be many more truths. I am inclined to agree with that. The one truth would be that there is one truth. Hey, my woman is here, or was here. Hello, woman. Thanks for all the hearts. Mr. Big says, higher things as in plural. You're going into Trinity Wonderland. You're sounding very Christian or Gnostic. Oh, I'm not going into the Trinity at all. I am going into Wonderland. I'll give you that. Wonder, right? Wonder in Hebrew is pele. Pele is something unknown, right? Wonder is something like I like to say, we have inspiration where we don't know where it comes from. And then we have the place where inspiration comes from. So that's the analogy that I give. Oh, pardon me. No, when I say higher things, I always mean not God, but divine revelation. Not God. I don't know anything about God. I don't know God, not the first thing, not the last thing, not anything in between. I do know how God reveals himself to me. And that makes all the difference. Right? Like I like to say, right? People would point to me now and says, here, this is Jonathan. But what do you mean? You're pointing at my clothes. Do you mean the clothes are Jonathan? It's like, no, right here. Okay, that's my nose. This is my beard. Is it me? No, but I'm dressed in this body, and my body is dressed in these clothing. So just like I have layers that go outward, there are layers that go inward. So it is plural. Everything is plural. We are living in a world of knowledge of good and evil. We were kicked out of a place because we, right, partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that already means that there is a duality here, embedded in the very reality that I occupy here and now with my mass in this time, in this space. A world of duality, of left and right, of high and low. And yes, it is plural. We live in a world of plurality, not a world of singularity. And well, never mind, let's not go there. Right, the astrophysics sort of singularity also. Okay, why do you assume David better than Jesus? I didn't say David was better than Jesus. I said that I would want to meet David because to me he embodies something. For all I know, Yeshua embodied the very same thing when he was alive. Cool. I still would want to meet David. I would want to meet David, I would. Mr. Big, again, with the transliteration. I'm sorry. I can't, I won't, I'm not getting what you're I don't understand where you are getting at with the transliterations. Ariel says, the reason I suffer during the sales is because there are so many things I can buy that will help me, but nowhere near enough money to get it all. So I spend forever trying to get the best deals in time. Well, okay, as long as you eventually get something that you are content and happy with, and that is useful to you, and that you will get, that you'll be happy that you purchased it. And if it's something practical, that you will put to practical use. And I'm not 100% against consuming things. I'm only of the opinion that it can be helpful and beneficial if you consume things consciously and knowingly. Let's see. Sanizar says, if David was so great, would the world not be making peace in David's name, not Jesus's? You're sort of putting words in my mouth, man. I never said that Jesus wasn't great in his time. He may as well have been just as great as David in his time. It's like there's the phrase, right? There's the verse, Moshe ve'Aharon b'kohanav u'Shmuel b'korei shmo, meaning from the Psalms, meaning that right, Moses and Aaron were his priests, and Samuel were among those who called out his name. And our sages say, why is Moses, Aaron, and Samuel? Why do they appear in the same verse? Saying they were priests, and he called right, and he was among those who called his name. It's to say that Samuel in his generation was like Moses and Aaron in their generation. So Jesus, if in his generation, to go with your thing, might be like David in his generation. I have no idea. So there's no disagreement here between us, I think. I'm not saying that one is greater than the other. Only war gets made in David's name. I disagree with you vehemently, Sennheiser. War is definitely not the only thing done in David's name. Anytime somebody utters a verse or chapter of Psalms, of Tehillim, right? We make mention, those who say the prayer that is traditionally said before Tehillim, you mention David's name, definitely. Also, like I said, David was the embodiment of the sphera of Malchut, right? The divine feminine presence here in this world, right? The lower divine feminine. And we here, through Torah and commandments, seek to unify the masculine presence and the feminine presence. And David embodies one of these. David is the fourth leg of the chariot, right? The three patriarchs and David. So I really disagree that only war gets made in his name. Really disagree. But that's just me. Mr. Big says, could you help me transition to your sect? I like some stuff, but not in a derogatory way, as in like Jesus, was he a reformer? Okay, if you're saying that Jesus was a reformer, then first of all, I have no sect. I'm just a simple, ignorant Nazarite. No more, no less. I am an Am Haaretz. I'm just a person of the land. That's it. That's all I am and all I will ever be. So, taking that into account, I understand it's not in a derogatory way. And I'm not seeking to reform anything. What I'm saying is that I'm a cherry picker. I take what I want and I make no apology. And I don't seek to reform Orthodox Judaism. I understand exactly why it is the way it is. I understand precisely why it had at the time to become the rabbinic Judaism that we know now, 2,000 years later, as the ruling, if you will, more prevalent Judaism. I get it. So I'm not seeking to reform. I'm not seeking to start a new faith. I'm not seeking to start a new religion. I'm not seeking to do anything of the sort. I'm just seeking, period. I just want to be the best Yonatan that I can be, no more, no less. And this is something that comes up in my dialogues and prayers with the Most High God all the time. For many, many years. It's all I want to be. Help me be who I can be. Help me be that, no more, no less. So it's not a sect. There are Nazarites who are Orthodox, and there are Nazarites who are not Orthodox. Mr. Big says, Ariel says, having said that, I have finished eating, so I'm going to get back to it. So have a nice evening, and I will catch you guys later. Okay, maybe I should go. Maybe I should say goodbye as well on that note. A couple more, and then I'll say goodbye. Yon says, be calm. Christianity is the West is a funny thing. In most churches, you can get drunk for a buzz, use tobacco, have tattoos, but shouldn't use kanebosim. In mainstream Christian thinking, using kanebosim separates you from God. Yes, we've had this conversation many times in the past on the utility of cannabis and that it has its time and place. It may have been part of the 11 herbs that made up the incense, right? That is only allowed to be created as such in the temple and ritual, right? The tabernacle temple ritual worship. and that knebosem independently, right, independent of the incense, of the temple incense, was indeed used for spiritual practices. So we already had this conversation, man. Now, can cannabis separate you from God? Yes. If you're a pothead who does nothing but smoke all day, it's always on your mind. You're always thinking of when you're going to smoke next. You're always looking for the next hit. You can't go to the movies without it. You can't hang out with friends without it. You can't just simply meditate, let's say, without it. It's always something you're thinking of. It's always something that occupies your and preoccupies your mind and occupies your time. And if you're a pothead that, and I mean that in the negative sense, that shirks responsibility and is like an adult kid, like an old infant, an old prepubescent child, just a little kid, that's not good. If it makes you too apathetic, that's not good. If it causes you to embrace the negative sides that are brewing inside of you, or if you are prone to some kind of mental condition and it exacerbates it or aggravates it or makes it flare up, you need to know your limits. That's why I say that cannabis and any drug, be it synthetic or organic, has its time and place. But you should be very, very careful with what you introduce into your system. Set and setting are paramount. Always. So using knebosim can definitely separate you from God if that's what you're going for. On the other hand, if you seek to find a connection with the Most High, you will find it there, right? This plant was put here to help us get closer to ourselves and get closer to each other. It's an amazing, wondrous, useful, beneficial, medicinal, household plant with so many uses in industry and spiritual practices. And it's an amazing plant, cannabis. But people will always be able to abuse even the best thing in the world. So if you know that you're the type to abuse things, don't do it. Don't get involved with knebosim. And you won't be separated. Sennheiser says to him, cannabis was one of the ingredients in the anointing oil. Yes, that's right. Also the anointing oil, they say. Shemen HaMishcha and Ktovet HaSamim. On that note, should I say goodbye now? I don't know. Yes, I think I will say goodbye. God willing, I will continue this chat on Wednesday from where we dropped off. Wow, this has been lovely. I thank you so very much once again for your time, your kind attention, your contributions, your subs, your views, your likes, your trolling, your derogatory comments, and well, I hope we can do this again sometime, maybe even Wednesday. Until then, good night from Jerusalem. This has been awesome. I thank you wholeheartedly. Cheers.